Ethan stood outside the vault, an underground music venue pulsing with life. The neon sign buzzed above the door, casting a flickering glow that seemed to vibrate along with the bass thumping inside. Ethan shifted uncomfortably, feeling out of place in his fitted blazer and polished shoes among the crowd, dressed in leather jackets, ripped jeans, and band tees. He had no idea why he'd agreed to this. Maybe curiosity got the better of him. Or maybe it was the way Lucas's voice had lingered in his mind, warm and inviting. "Come to my gig. It's not Carnegie Hall, but it's got soul." Ethan took a deep breath and pushed the door open. Inside, the air was thick with the smell of sweat and beer, and the sound of guitars, drums, and laughter filled the dimly lit space. People crowded around the small stage where Lucas's band was setting up, chatting excitedly. Ethan scanned the room, suddenly feeling small and unsure. His eyes found Lucas near the front, tuning his guitar, effortlessly commanding the space with his laid-back charm. The guitarist wore a loose black shirt with the sleeves rolled up, his hair an artful mess. His fingers moved confidently over the strings, as though the guitar were an extension of himself. Ethan stayed near the back, folding his arms across his chest, hoping Lucas wouldn't spot him. But of course Lucas did. His gaze locked onto Ethan through the crowd, and a grin spread across his face. He leaned into the microphone, his voice playful. "Looks like we've got a special guest tonight, folks." Heads turned, and Ethan felt the heat rise to his face. He wanted to sink into the floor, but Lucas was already waving him closer. "Ethan Park, everybody," Lucas said, gesturing dramatically, as if introducing a celebrity. The crowd chuckled, sensing the teasing camaraderie between the two. Ethan sighed, reluctantly making his way toward the stage. When he reached the front, Lucas leaned down from the platform, still grinning. "Didn't think you'd actually show, Maestro." Ethan gave him a pointed look. "I wanted to see if you could play something without wrecking it." Lucas laughed, the sound warm and unguarded. "Stick around. You might learn a thing or two." The banter between them earned a few more chuckles from the audience. Ethan rolled his eyes, but he couldn't help the flicker of amusement creeping into his expression. As Lucas's band launched into their set, Ethan found himself drawn in despite his initial discomfort. The music was raw and unpolished, with jagged edges that shouldn't have worked, but somehow it did. Lucas's guitar weaved through the chaos like a guiding thread, reckless and unpredictable, but full of life. Ethan listened mesmerized as Lucas lost himself in the music. His fingers danced over the guitar strings, each note infused with passion. It was messy, imperfect, and utterly captivating. For the first time, Ethan began to understand why Lucas approached music the way he did. There was a kind of freedom in it, a release Ethan had never allowed himself. Midway through the set, Lucas's bandmate stepped back, leaving Lucas alone under the spotlight. He adjusted the mic and glanced at Ethan, his gaze softer now. "This one's for a friend who thinks everything has to be perfect," Lucas said, his voice low but carrying through the room. "But sometimes, the best things happen when you let go." Ethan's heart skipped a beat as Lucas began playing a stripped-down melody. It was simple, just a few chords, but there was something achingly beautiful in its simplicity. The audience fell silent, the usual chatter fading into reverent stillness. As the song swelled, Ethan felt something stir deep inside him. Lucas's music wasn't just about hitting the right notes, it was about expressing something raw and real. It was like the musical equivalent of saying, "Asterisk, here I am, flaws and all." When the last note faded, the room erupted in applause. Lucas smiled, a little breathless, and glanced down at Ethan. "So, what do you think?" Ethan stared at him, unsure how to put what he was feeling into words. Finally, he gave a small, reluctant nod. "Not bad," he admitted, though his voice lacked its usual sharpness. Lucas chuckled, clearly pleased with himself. "Told you." After the set, Lucas hopped off the stage and joined Ethan, still riding the high from the performance. He clapped Ethan on the shoulder, the touch casual but warm. "Thanks for coming," Lucas said, his voice sincere beneath the teasing. Ethan shifted awkwardly, unused to this kind of easy affection. "It wasn't awful," he muttered, earning another laugh from Lucas. "High praise from you, maestro." Lucas leaned closer, a mischievous glint in his eyes. "So, does this mean you're finally loosening up?" Ethan opened his mouth to retort, but before he could say anything, one of Lucas's bandmates interrupted. "Hey, Lucas, we're grabbing drinks. You in?" Lucas glanced between his friends and Ethan, hesitating for the first time. "You want to come?" he asked, his tone light, but with a hint of hope. Ethan hesitated. This wasn't his scene, and part of him wanted to escape back to the safety of his structured world. But another part, the part that had been stirred by Lucas's music, made him pause. Ethan began, unsure of his answer. But then Lucas gave him that same easy smile, the one that made everything feel just a little less daunting. "No pressure," Lucas said, sensing Ethan's conflict. "I'll catch you later if you want." Ethan nodded slowly, feeling oddly grateful for Lucas's understanding. "Maybe next time," he said, surprising even himself. Lucas grinned, tapping Ethan's shoulder lightly. "I'll hold you to that." As Lucas walked off with his bandmates, Ethan stood there for a moment, watching him go. The noise of the venue swirled around him, but for the first time in a long time, it didn't feel overwhelming. It felt freeing. Ethan stepped outside into the cool night air, his mind still buzzing with thoughts. He knew he didn't belong in Lucas's world, or maybe he just hadn't realized until now that there was more than one way to belong. The thought lingered as he walked down the street, the melody Lucas had played still echoing in his mind. And for the first time in years, Ethan felt something unexpected bloom in his chest, hope. Maybe, just maybe, he didn't have to follow the same rigid path after all.